Welcome back to Inside Story. Well, the withdrawal of the Sunni Accordance Front also signals a growing crisis between the Maliki government and the Bush administration. Under pressure from the US Congress, President Bush has sought concrete steps from the Maliki government, showing that it's doing enough to improve security. Within Congress, calls for a US withdrawal are becoming louder. In mid-July, the Democratic-controlled House voted to demand that Washington withdraw most combat troops from Iraq by April next year. And in September, General David Petraeus, the commander of the American forces in Iraq, and Ambassador Ryan C. Crocker will present their official assessment of the situation in Iraq. The report will determine the US's view of the Maliki government's successes or failures on 18 benchmarks on military, economic and political matters. Well, the reaction from the United States emphasized the difficulty of the situation. US Embassy spokesman Phil Rieker said, "Is it frustrating? Yes. It's frustrating for us, it's frustrating for them, it's frustrating for the Iraqi people." Our guests are still with us. From the Jordan capital Amman, Farid Sabri, spokesman of the Iraqi Islamic Party. In Washington, Scott Bates, vice president of the Center for National Policy. And in London, Hassan Atiyah, head of the Center of Iraqi Studies. Mr. Atiyah, let's just run through some of the things on this list of benchmarks. When it came to oil distribution, no, they failed to meet that. When it came to de-Baathification, no, they failed to meet that. I'm reading from a White House list. Autonomy, no. Amnesty, no. Militia disarmament, no. Even-handedness of the forces, no. 2 points here. In any sense, was it a good idea, first of all, to have this benchmark? And with so many failures, what's the progress report likely to be?
To start with, even Ambassador Crocker mentioned the other day that maybe this is the wrong idea of this benchmark, which suits the American domestic politics. The different yardstick which is being followed in Baghdad than that in Washington. Having said that, these benchmarks, by asking the Maliki government to deliver these things, they are not practical for the simple reason. What dominates the policy in Baghdad is what we call it a zero-sum situation. Based on sectarian basis, Shia, Sunni, Kurd, each party will consider any gain for anyone will be lost on his part. And they are incapable of compromise. And this is a situation which known by so many parties. And here's the question. Al-Maliki maybe was gaining time and having back in their mind, ultimately they will solve the problem militarily. By someone will be a victor and one a loser. Also now, maybe the Sunni, some of them think there is no use of all this. Let's prepare ourselves to finish the work by war. There are so many people who think in terms of victory. And this mentality is not conducive for compromise. And accordingly, I see the way out of this, there should be a total change of approach. And if there's time, I will explain my point of view in this sense.
OK, we'll give you that time if we have it. Let's go to Scott Bates in Washington now. It was, in many people's opinions, a little rushed, if not a foolish idea to have this benchmark now. So where do Petraeus and Crocker go when they have to give their report in September, which the American people will be looking at and regarding as a yardstick of success or failure?
Well, that's absolutely right. I think they're going to have to emphasize security gains where they may find them. In Anbar province, working with some Sunni tribal leaders, this is already what you hear from the administration, that the security plan is working in a limited way. But I have to say, if this situation continues where the governing coalition is broken apart, this will be seized on by all those who want to end our involvement in Iraq. And it'll be a pretty hard argument to overcome, because ultimately our top officials have said this is not a military solution to the situation. There has to be a political situation. And right now the politics does not look promising. That's why I'd say, well, we're at the beginning of August, and hopefully for all parties concerned, they will work this out in the weeks to come, because if it is not worked out by September 15th, everyone is going to be the loser here.
And of course, Farid Sabri in Jordan, there's a parliamentary recess for the next month, so it's going to be a bit difficult. A lot of work to have to be done behind the scenes, perhaps. Do you think that's likely?
No, I don't think so. I think Al-Maliki, as Mr. Ghassan Al-Atiyah has said, he thinks he's winning. He thinks that he's got the militias on his side. He thinks that he's already ethnically cleansed Baghdad, and he's going to ethnically cleanse Diyala and other districts. So why should he compromise? I mean, there is no compromise on his table, because we've been talking to him for the past 13 months, and he's been really, all what we could hear from him is promises and words. This gentleman, I don't think could be trusted.
We concentrate on Iraq so much on the international scene, and so much of it is pessimistic. I'm going to ask you, each one of you in turn, what might be the most difficult question of all. Give me two pieces of good news from Iraq within the last couple of months. Mr. Sabri, first of all.
Well, Mr. Sabri, well, the Iraqi football team has won the Asian title, and I don't think there is any other joyful news, because with the Maliki's government, I don't think we could see any joy in this Iraq.
Hassan Atiyah?
I think the glimmer of hope is in the following sense. The majority of the Iraqis, especially Arab Iraqis, are fed up with sectarianism, and there is a growing secular and liberal tendency, and they have from direct contact with Sunni and Shia. According to this, I feel it is right time now to call for a new election, and such election has to be preceded by appointment of a new prime minister with agreement of all the party concerned, and hope the administration, American administration, will catch this idea. This government will be given a life of 2 to 3 years to bring a better management to the situation, change of electoral law, and then go to the people with a new electoral law. Maybe we will come with a new parliament which can work on a more democratic basis rather than on a sectarian basis.
Interesting, because many people will look at Iraq at the moment and say, well, sectarian violence isn't ending. But looking at the list of benchmarks again from the White House, it says, yes, the assessment is that the government of Iraq, with coalition assistance, has made satisfactory progress towards reducing sectarian violence. Still, it suggests a long way to go. Scott Bates, that, if it's happened, is good news. What other two pieces can you add to this discussion?
Well, I think the good news today, if you can find it amidst the rubble, is that the parties are still talking with one another. The door is open, and so it's not a severing of ties entirely. And there's also some evidence of Sunnis working against al-Qaeda. That's good for the security scene. So if you have to find good news, I suppose that's where I'd find it. And I have to agree with my colleague that, you know, it just might be we have to look anew at the governing structures. If you go back in American history, we actually had to start over. Our first attempt at a federal government did not work, and we had to go at it again. Americans forget that quite often.
Farid Sabri and Hassan Atiyah, last words to you, Mr. Sabri, first of all. If that happens, if it has to start all over again, how many more years of turmoil for your country?
I think this is a great idea. If the political process has to start again from scratch, I think it has to start under the auspices of the United Nations. I think it will take probably, as Hassan Atiyah said, 3 years for Iraq to recover, and after that, with the new parliament, I think Iraq has some chance and hope for a better future.
Mr. Atiyah, 4 years since the invasion of Iraq began, is your 3-year assessment realistic if this government falls?
What I'm proposing is not this, is now the UN. Today, the American and the British tabled a draft resolution in the Security Council to get the UN to be more involved with the Iraqi issue on a more political humanitarian, which will be very beneficial. The idea is we don't want a loser or a winner in this game in Iraq. I think all the parties realize this. Those who would like to push Iraq further into civil war, now they have to realize that the damage they could incur. The idea is not totally to abolish the political process. The constitution could remain the way it is now, but the parliament will be resolved, and the new cabinet will be formed of all technicians, all technocrats, and they will have to specify they will not stand for election. Like in Mauritania, they will refrain from standing for election. They will only caretaker. In this sense, then we can bring all the party, have a window of opportunity. The Sunni will think they will get a better vote. The Shia secular will feel that they can be redressed, because the real group that now in Baghdad, in Iraq, has been marginalized are the secular and the liberal groups. According to this,
a quick thought. 6 months from now, we'll be talking about Mr. Maliki as the former Iraqi Prime Minister?
If this didn't happen, then we are actually a step further into a bloody civil war.
Well, that's not an encouraging thought to end on. Gentlemen, thank you all very much for your contribution to this discussion on Iraq and the failing political situation here. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Inside Story. We do welcome your comments and suggestions. I promise you they do all get read. Do email us, insidestory@aljazeera.net. From all of us here on the team, thanks for watching. Goodbye for now.